Malaysia is a Southeast Asian country located on a strategic sea lane that exposes it to global trade and foreign culture. Hinduism from India and Buddhism and Taoism from China dominated early regional history, reaching their peak during the reign of the Sumatra-based Srivijaya civilization, whose influence extended through Sumatra, Java, the Malay Peninsula and much of Borneo from the 7th to the 13th centuries. Although Muslims had passed through the Malay Peninsula as early as the 10th century, it was not until the 14th century that Islam first firmly established itself. The adoption of Islam in the 14th century saw the rise of a number of sultanates, the most prominent of which was the Sultanate of Malacca. Islam had a profound influence on the Malay people, but has also been influenced by them. The Portuguese were the first European colonial powers to establish themselves on the Malay Peninsula and Southeast Asia, capturing Malacca in 1511, followed by the Dutch in 1641. However, it was the British who, after initially establishing bases at Jesselton, Kuching, Penang and Singapore, ultimately secured their hegemony across the territory that is now Malaysia. The Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1824 defined the boundaries between British Malaya and the Netherlands East Indies, which became Indonesia. A fourth phase of foreign influence was immigration of Chinese and Indian workers to meet the needs of the colonial economy created by the British in the Malay Peninsula and Borneo. Japanese invasion during World War II ended British domination in Malaysia. The subsequent occupation of Malaya, North Borneo and Sarawak from 1942 to 1945 unleashed nationalism. In the peninsula, the Malayan Communist Party took up arms against the British. A tough military response was needed to end the insurgency and bring about the establishment of an independent multiracial Federation of Malaya on the 31st of August 1957. On the 22nd of July 1963, Sarawak was granted a self-governance. The following month, on the 31st of August 1963, both North Borneo and Singapore were also granted self-governance, and all states began to form Malaysia on the 16th of September 1963. Approximately 2 years later, the Malaysian Parliament passed a bill without the consent of signatory of Malaysia Agreement 1963 to separate Singapore from the Federation. A confrontation with Indonesia occurred in the early 1960s. Race riots in 1969 led to the imposition of emergency rule and a curtailment of political life and civil liberties which has never been fully reversed. Since 1970, the National Front coalition headed by United Malays National Organisation UMNO has governed Malaysia. Economic growth dramatically increased living standards by the 1990s. This growing prosperity helped minimize political discontent